You're listening to the All In Podcast with your hosts, Shane and Blake, giving you a new perspective on the dental industry. Are you ready to go all in?
Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this.
And welcome to the All In Podcast, the podcast that brings you a new perspective on, well, so many things, and every once in a while, dentistry. And you guys get two in a row, another dentistry episode. We had Dr. Perio, some loser for some DIA meeting before, but now you're graced with royalty on this particular podcast. So welcome back to the podcast, Dr. Yvette Carrillo, a.k.a. Perio Princess. What's up, Yvette? How are you doing?
Hi, Shane. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. You're acting so formal right now because we just talk trash all the time.
No, it's because I just followed pay raise, so it's so much pressure. Pay raise.
Oh, there's literally no pressure at all because you had two ADD fools bouncing off the walls. I'm not even sure we finished a sentence unless we finished each other. So you're going to be just fine. Don't worry about that.
You know I have ADHD, right? We've talked about this.
I know we're screwed here, but nobody has it worse than pay rate. So we're good. So we're good here. All right. So what have you been up to? Obviously, I know a little bit. I'm not going to lie and say we haven't talked in forever. We have, but you got a lot of new stuff going on. But let's go back first. How long ago was it when you were originally on the podcast?
I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago. I was thinking about it today and I was like, I've been friends with Shane for a while, like in and outside of dentistry. But I think we met in 2019 and then COVID hit and then we did the first podcast. So I think it's been a while since the first podcast I've done with you.
That's crazy. That's been almost 4 years already. Almost exactly since COVID hit originally. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. And by the way, that was one of our top episodes for a really long time. I think we were talking about like public speaking, but it was obviously because the princess was on. Had nothing to do with the topic.
No. Am I not the top podcast? That's what I really want to know.
Not anymore, but you're back now.
I'm back. That's to redeem myself. I don't like.
You just win the championship again. Be number one again.
No, I didn't win. Then we did that. What was it? It was like a game show thing.
Jeopardy. Yeah, we did that too. That was fun. I forgot about that. So if you guys have become new listeners, if you go back, you're going to see like some episodes that were Jeopardy, and there was actually video with that. And that was right in the middle of COVID. I was bored out of my mind. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see a bunch of my buddies want to get on a fake game show and do stupid dentistry questions and pop culture questions. And there are no winners. We only punish the losers. So we would smash eggs on heads, do shots of Tabasco. I think you did like flour or something in your face. I can't remember what it was, but it was awesome.
Honey on the face. It was me, Stephanie, and Jenny. And I did flour and honey all over my face. Yeah.
I can't believe these people did this. Had a bunch of KOLs on. Like usually they would ask for money for that kind of stuff, but they were asking to be on, which was great. Just to be punished. And I have no idea why, but they wanted to do it. And it was great. I do miss my fake mustache, though.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You're not a fan of the fake mustache that I drew on my wife's mascara? I don't appreciate that.
I thought it was real. I was trying to think.
Yeah, right. Dude. Well, tell me what's going on with you out west. Because out on the East Coast right now, it's pollen season. It's windy. How's the weather out there?
Terrible. I usually don't get allergies too bad, but today I was driving home and I was like sneezing, and all my patients have been bad. But nobody feels bad for me when I complain about like the weather in San Diego. Everyone's like, "Oh, boo-hoo, like it's snowing here," and I'm like, "Huh?" Yeah,
you're not going to win a lot when you live in San Diego and complain about the weather. I'm not going to lie.
No, but here's the thing: like we pay the sunshine tax, right? And it's expensive to live here, so you want good weather. Otherwise, like, why am I here? I can live in New Mexico again.
Well, call Governor Newsom and you tell him what's up, okay?
I'm sure he would enjoy a piece of my mind.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure about that. But, all right, let's go. Last time I got to see you was at AAP. Right?
Yeah.
When was that? Was that November?
It was San Antonio. No, Austin.
Austin? Yeah, it was Austin.
Texas in November. Yeah.
Golly, that seems like yesterday. And that's already like, what, 4 months, 5 months?
Yeah,
Jesus,
4
that's
months.
crazy. So at that meeting, you were talking about a meeting that you wanted to do
Yeah.
And we had discussed that a bit. Why don't you take us through what that meeting is and what you're doing? It's pretty cool.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You helped so much, like definitely the backbone, not just gassing you up because you're my friend, but you really helped a lot. Even though
I've made a lot of mistakes. So I can tell you, I'm really good at saying what not to do.
yeah, but you also like help with like the backbone and like the foundation of the meeting. Obviously with DIA and with Zimby, like you have so much experience. So I wasn't even going to go to that meeting at all, just because the practice is fairly new. I opened the Start from Scratch 2 years ago. April 1st will be going into my third.
By the way, everybody, I don't think we went into this. If you don't know Perio Princess, she's obviously a periodontist. Yeah. Okay, that was her residency. Mm-hmm. So continue. Just want to get the listeners an update there.
I forget. So my bad. I'm a periodontist. I did period implant at Loma Linda. I did undergrad at Loma Linda. I was part-time faculty for a long time, just taking a break to focus on the Start from Scratch in San Diego. But for Perio, we have our annual Perio meeting every year. It's usually like around Halloween time, different parts of the country. I was not going to go just because I wanted to focus on the practice. And then I started getting this like inkling, like I should go. And a good friend's husband booked a room for me and some of the girls. And they were like, just go, you ladies go, enjoy. And like, who doesn't want to go and hang out with the girls? So I booked a last minute flight. I think like the day before or something, I booked a flight. And
yeah, I know you because you had texted me, I'm not going. I think it was like a few months earlier or something, like the day of or something. You're like, are you there? I'm like, yeah, I'm here.
I'm here.
Because we love that meeting. AP is a great meeting for us. It was packed out this year more so than years past. It's always done well, but like the last 2 or 3 years, they've crushed it, at least from a vendor perspective, right? Yeah. Like I thought it has been great.
Yeah, I've gone the last 2 years. The year before, I was still a little bit more hesitant because it was still COVID-y. And the thing that I never like expected was a little bit of notoriety from Instagram and like being recognizable. Yeah. So that was my first time where like people were like, hey, like Perio Princess. I'm like,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was 2 years ago. And then this year, booked it last minute, told you I was there. I started to get the idea to do some type of like Women in Perio conference or CE right before. And then just the fire got kind of lit under me from myself. And I was like, I need to go.
Why? Good question. Why?
Because somebody told me not to do it, that it was a bad idea.
Oh, you are like me. So don't tell me what not to do. My wife does that trick on me all the time. I love it.
Someone said it was not a good idea. And I was like, excuse you. I think it's a great idea.
That sounds like a man said that, if I'm guessing.
Maybe.
Maybe. You never know nowadays. You never know. So... All right, sorry to interrupt. Keep going. So you had the thought to do this meeting. Had the drive out of just pure FU to somebody. I like that.
No, don't do it. It's not a good idea. I think I had a meeting and I was like, hey, I feel like women aren't really represented, and like not just perio, but I think oral surgery is a little bit of a step up because they at least have like a mentor-mentee relationship. But just through Instagram and social media and my blog, before I ever had a social media, it kind of like cultivated the mentees and people that I connected with and other friends that I would have never, just men and women, not just like ladies.
Sure.
And different friends in the industry. And I was like, I feel like there's not a lot of female speakers. And then also like, our last podcast that we had about like public speaking and all that. And a lot of people have questions about it and maybe they want to know, learn more, do it, but they don't know where to start. So I was like, okay, I can start. Like I can do it. I live in San Diego. I have the connections. I've been here for a while now. A lot of my friends are in the restaurant business. So like I can find a venue. You and I broke down numbers and you're like, just it's going to cost, blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
By
okay.
the way, everybody, there is a formula to how you do a meeting, do what you charge for there is a formula. You can DM me if you want to know what that formula is.
I'm like, so sorry, guys. Like, I wish I could just be like, just come, don't pay, and show up, like, do your thing. But actually, like, it's really expensive, and I personally funded a lot of the conference. So.
Yeah, and you got to mitigate as much of that risk as you possibly can, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially on the first time you're doing something, you don't have any history, you don't know, like, usually if you have meetings that have years of you're getting X amount of people coming no matter what, right? So you got to hedge your bets a little bit there.
Right. So I knew what the venue could fit. And then I kind of went from there, hoping that I would sell out, but I wasn't sure because, yeah, of course, a lot of people want to see like all female speaker lineup or want to support women in perio, but how many people have the time, the money, the energy to come and show up and to travel? Like, that's also expensive too, you know?
Sure. Oh, so, yeah, it can be.
Yeah. So, yeah, we sat down, we talked about it, we crunched some numbers, and then I was like, okay, bye. And yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the name of this meeting? And then why don't you take me through who's going to be there? What's kind of the agenda, topics, all that?
Okay, so the name of the meeting is Women in Perio. The company is through the business now. Later, I'll branch out, but just for tax reasons.
Sure.
Scrubs and Scalpels, and then Women in Perio is the first CE. I want to do other continuum, but I want to do at least every other year a Women in Perio conference.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're doing it June 8th. It's a one-day event. I hope to add on and make it like a 2-day thing and do some hands-on learning because I think that's where we all learn is through like hands-on. But for this year, yeah, just lectures. Most of the speakers are going for about 1 hour. I have a pretty heavy lineup that I'm so excited about. Like,
well, can you tell us, or is it like a secret?
It was a secret. So I was doing also like side note, some of my staff help with like the marketing and like, social media and all that. My webmaster helped with the website, but a lot of it, I was like modeling after Taylor Swift because I'm such a Swiftie.
Tay-Tay.
Yes, I love Taylor Swift. So I was just dropping hints like here and there as to who's coming. So I had a pretty good mix because I wanted to show that there's other ways once you're done with residency, like aside from DSO, aside from being a full-time faculty or part-time faculty, Kelly Mish is coming, which I'm like,
oh, that's awesome. Funny thing is, like, I've never met Kelly. I haven't got to see her lectures live in person, but like I just had dinner at AAP with like two of her partners, Dr. Katranji and Dr. Bunnick, and Dr. Bunnick's wife, super cool, but not her. So I'd love to see her in person.
She is a force. She's helped me so much with the practice and just like practical questions that I have. She's amazing.
Well, and coming from that family and having that name alone is it can be a major burden too, right? Like that's a lot of weight to carry, especially in implant dentistry or even in periodontics. Like that's a big deal. And I think she's done it exceedingly well, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's what like probably people would be like, oh, she's one of the Mishes, like they're all in Perio, da da da. It's actually so hard, and if
not true,
it's harder because she has that name, like behind her.
Oh, yeah.
And she's built her own practices and her own institute. So Kelly's lecturing. And I love what she's lecturing on too, because she's talking about managing peri-implantitis and complications within offices and within referrals. So team communication, which is
a huge topic that you never see out there very often. The reason you don't see it out there, you're never going to have an implant company said, hey, will you sponsor this? Like we're actually doing that at a big event to sponsor that, but like most don't because there's no upside in their minds, right? But that's a huge topic.
It's huge. And like we have to be honest with ourselves. More people are placing implants, different specialists, even at Loma Linda, like endo was placing implants, Pras was placing implants, perio, oral surgery, the students are placing implants. So that's okay, but we have to learn how to communicate and work within our confines. So I'm super excited about that. I have another girlfriend from California. She's lecturing on CBD and dentistry, which is, super
not
exciting.
THC, just CBD.
Just got CBD. It. California,
That's CBD. You can probably do it anywhere.
Yeah.
THC, California.
Yeah, California. But before we could not research or do any research on it because,
Yeah.
it wasn't legal. So she'll be talking about that. I have Ashley Hoders coming. She's one of the only two Perio Princess women in the country.
Nice.
I know, which I had no clue. But she's amazing. She's been a good connection. We have a mutual friend. Brad Ross was her classmate. So I was like,
Oh,
whoa.
nice.
Yeah, it's such a small world, which makes you realize like dentistry is really small.
It is so small. Like, it's so funny to have all these relationships for me come back after, through these 15, 16, 17, how many years I've been in dentistry. It's like same people, right? Like, little clue here, be nice to everybody.
No, that's what I was telling the girls. I had a patient come in and I ended up knowing a cousin of his. And I'm like, what if I was mean? Like, what if I was a
Oh, yeah.
person? Yeah.
Just be nice or don't say anything at all. Just like your mom used to tell you, right?
Just
The way.
But yeah, she went to dental school with Brad, so it was like amazing. I have Samar. She's a up and coming. She's not a new grad. I think we graduated around the same time, but her husband's also a periodontist, which I think could be tough when both of you are in dentistry. So that's going to be exciting. Irina Dragon's also lecturing on hard tissue, so I'm super excited about that. Dr. Kareem and she's going to be lecturing on full arch soft tissue grafting, which I think is super.
That's really cool.
Yes. And that was a secret launch, but now it's like a hard launch. But Sanaz.
Not a secret anymore.
Not a secret anymore. Sanaz is flying down from DC. So they're going to do like a Q&A type interview. And so we're going to take Instagram questions from failures. So again, talking about failures, not just showing our like slam dunk cases, look at what I can do. Like, when a patient messages you and they're like, this looks like this or this color, and they send you those photos and you're like, don't pull your cheek. I told you, don't do this. But just how to handle that and how to talk to patients. So a lot of practice management stuff that I'm like super, super excited about.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so what's the website where people could check this out and when is it?
www.scrubsandscalpels.com, and it is June 8th from 9:30 to 6:30 here in San Diego, California.
I may need you to move that date, Princess, and here's why. When you told me the original date, I was pretty bummed because I have already booked a trip. Otherwise, I would be there, even though I'm not a woman. You said it was fine. Blake McClellan, the former podcast host, says I'm not much of a man, so that's fine too. Forget you, Blake. But I booked a once in a lifetime trip with my dad to Scotland to do a golf trip. So you'll have to forgive me. I will be at the next one.
I love that. I definitely forgive you. Family is important. Dads are important. Is it your dad a dentist?
Also, golf is important. And so I keep telling my wife that. She doesn't believe me. And neither does Princess.
No, I learned how to golf just because I was told I needed to learn how to golf if I was going to be a dentist. And it's not that fun. It's hard on your body, actually.
It's not that hard if you're doing it right.
It's really tough. Like swinging the club, it's really hard.
Okay, yeah, fair point, right? If you've never played before, I'm a good athlete, right? I'm just going to pick up that club and I'm going to hit it perfect. That will not happen. And I will bet any person who's ever played before that you will hit crap shots as you start out. It's very awkward.
No, I'm not bad. I'm actually really good at golf, but it's so hard. I can do like 9 holes and then I'm exhausted. Like,
yeah, it can wear you down, but life wears you down. So why not golf?
Yeah, I'm done 9 holes. I'm like, give me a beer. I'll drive the golf cart.
See, if you don't have to play, you just drink.
I think that's the thing is most people don't actually play.
No, they don't. Well, hey, I got a question for you. So you're talking about, I didn't want to interrupt because I didn't want to ADHD us in the middle of what we were talking about at the meeting, but you said there's not a lot of women speakers out there. Why do you think that is?
I think there's lots of reasons. So I actually saw Blake at AP. We had a long conversation about it and he was like, sometimes it's just easier to get the guys. Like we're like, hey, we're in a pinch, like, yeah, we can go. And I'm like, yeah, because at the end of the day, like we're the caretaker, we have the kids, I'm sorry, not like, I know there's a lot of dads that are like,
You don't have to be PC here. I'll take care of that for us and be way over the top with it, so you're fine.
like no, there's a lot of dads.
As a general rule, that is very true, especially the younger your kids are, right? Like usually mom stays home, right? Like, and that's not a standing rule. Like my wife has as many business trips as I do now. So like we switch and stuff, but I think as a general rule, speaking is not just speaking when you're there.
Right.
There's a lot of prep time too.
Yeah, that's definitely something I appreciate about you guys. I think that's something that we don't really talk about, or that you don't know unless you start to speak and do like CEN lectures. There's so much prep time when you're at a conference and you see this person. I'm going to say Dr. Can just because he's been a mentor and a friend for like 15 years at this point. When he speaks, it's so intentional. There's a thought behind everything. His hand motion, his steps, the inflection in his tone, but he practices so much and he stays up so late till like 2, 3, like working on the slides, the presentation, the delivery. And we're not taught that at all. We're taught how to do clinical dentistry, right? So how many of us have the time as women to spend countless hours on like content for a 40-minute, like 1 hour lecture? Not a lot of us.
I would say not even just women in general, life's super busy. Now, I think once you build enough content, just like on social, right? Like what takes, like if you ask my dad to post a post like you do, that's going to be a while, right? Like it's not going to happen. But for you, it's quicker. Now, anybody who's done it for a long time, they splice this lecture and that lecture together, and then it can be quicker. But I think everybody thinks about the lecture itself. But to your point, there's way more. There's inflection, tone, all that, getting capturing the energy of the audience, matching the energy, bringing them where you want to be. Like that, part of that you can teach, part of that you have to feel, right? But just putting slides together, because you have a lot of people like us who, if there's not an awesome picture or video or something on the slide, or it's all words, you're going to lose people. So there's a lot of thought, time, and intention for like the really good speakers. Is not just what you're going to say. It's that's a visual aid. That is not the presentation, right? Like, and some people make the mistake of putting everything on their slide, which is a mistake because you can't read any of it.
Reading off the slides.
Yeah. I mean, that happens all the time, right? Like
rookie mistake.
It is a rookie mistake. And the ability to, I remember the first lecture I gave. Now this is a different scenario. This was when I was like a study club as an implant rep. So I'm talking about my thing, but I remember like, I was terrified, right? This was a long time ago. And I just remember them being like, asking a question about something that was coming up later, but I needed to sidetrack, and that just screwed me. I couldn't go off path. I had to be on path, right? And you have to have the ability to jump off path and jump back in as needed, right?
Or tell them like, hold that thought, we will get there.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Hey, shut up in the back. I'll talk about it in a few minutes. That's usually how I do it.
Or honestly, people talking, like it's so tough to get distracted, but getting back on track. So I think that's part of the reason. Another reason why is because there's already not a lot of women in perio that are up there lecturing. It's tough to do something when you don't have like the mold or the format to go on. Like
the path hasn't, well, it has been, but not blaze that entire trail, right? To make it an easy path. Right.
Yeah. So who are you supposed to ask? Because if you're a resident and you're like, I want to do that. I like teaching. I like explaining. Like this feels good to me, but you don't have anybody that you can like relate to or that you can confide in. Like, how are you supposed to get that leg up unless somebody else like, you know, starts the path for you or trailblazes like for you?
Well, 100%. I think so many people don't value their perspective enough, or their like who they are and what they've experienced enough that to think they're worthy of sharing that, right? Like, oh my God, you have to be a big deal to speak. No, you don't, right? And there's a lot of people who want to learn from you, right? So you just graduated residency, right? Like I would assume there's a lot of people who are in residency or just coming out just behind you that probably have questions for you.
That was when I first started like working alongside you, and you're like, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm like, well, no, what do I have to say? It's nothing important. And you're like, what do you have to lose? Nothing, because, you know, you're just starting out. And I was like, okay. So not like I needed permission, but you kind of need somebody to put it into perspective for you, you know?
Yeah. Well, it kind of like, you know, push you a little bit as a friend, right?
Yeah.
Why are you being a pansy? Just try it.
Just do it. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, nothing. Exactly.
Well, literally, I was talking to somebody else who wanted to start a podcast, a
Yeah.
couple of people over the last few weeks, and I'm like, hey, just do it. I go, the hardest thing you'll experience, the hardest step is just doing the first one, and it's probably going to suck. And guess what? If it sucks, nobody's going to listen.
Yeah. And it's fine, and just keep doing it. It's the same thing with social media. Like, and everyone's like, oh, you're so real, you're so honest, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just start. And I know you feel like maybe what I have to say, it's not different, it's not valued, it's not, important, but there's somebody out there that it's going to resonate with. And even if it's just one person, I think that's what's important,
Well, 100%. In fact, there's been times where it's like, you can make a really big impact on one person, or you give a small impact on a lot of people, right? Like both are good,
Yeah.
but you can change somebody's path, and I've been blessed with a few opportunities to do that for people and help guide them. And like, I wish I had more of that when I was a little bit younger or with less experience. Right. And I think that's the key. It's okay. Imagine you 5, 10, 15, whatever years earlier. What scared you? What did you want to know? What were you, wanting to do or think you want to do? Right. Like, you can just speak to a younger version of yourself, and that's good. Like, there's lots of you out there, right? Like,
there was like looks that people would give me where they were just like a little bit concerned, and then now I have that look with people, and I'm like, I understand.
I have that look all the time. Just stays on my face now.
Like oh, honey.
Well, speaking of that though, so like we just talked about new grads. So you just got asked to speak at an AAP, didn't you?
I did. When is this podcast going live?
I don't know. It'll be in March.
Okay. Well, it's March 25th, but it's a little bit top secret. But yes, I did. So it's really wild. I'm like super honored. I always told myself that I would feel like I quote unquote made it if I would be on the podium at AAP, and I got asked to speak at AAP. And I was like, wow, I know that it was wild because I didn't feel that like I made it. I was just like, oh, okay. Like
sidebar. That's everything in life that you do. Like, when I make it to this, then I'm there. And then you'll realize I'm here. It looks the same
right
as where I was before. That's because there's never an ending point, by the way, for anybody out there.
That's something like I got to work on, right? Because I was like, I know I'll feel something. And I was just like, when I was asked, it's panel for new recent grads, life after residency. But I'm like, I'm not the person you want. I'm not the person that should be up there speaking and giving advice on life after residency. I had a really difficult post-residency experience. I moved back to New Mexico. I moved to San Diego. I was a partner. That fell through. I tried to buy practices. That fell through. I did a start from scratch. That's horrible.
That's exactly why you're the person I want up there. Right? You went through all the bullshit, and somebody's going to go through that bullshit. Nobody cares. I had the easiest time after residency, and I just came out and it was perfect. Like, okay, end of story, get off the stage.
You have the money and I got all the fun things, and I was like, I don't have anything positive to say. I'm going to sound like a nightmare. And they're like, no, we want we want the realness. We want you to say what you've gone through. I'm like, I slept on an air mattress when I first moved to San Diego. I had disposable silverware. I had one plate. I still have that plate to this day.
Keep that.
It's a memory, but I'm like, it wasn't easy. And they're like, that's what the residents need to know. And I'm like, it sucks because I know how, for me, residency was easy, but it can be tough,
sure.
Emotionally draining, financially draining in so many ways. So I didn't think I was the person, but then also maybe I am the person,
Oh, I would argue that the tougher paths are the ones you want to hear, because then it's relatable, and everybody's going through some bullshit, or they're not going through bullshit and they're not happy. And that, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's got their thing. And I think it's nice to hear the rosy stories, right? But those stories are only good if you watch any good movie. There is a protagonist, an antagonist. There is some type of trauma or challenge in the way so that person can become the hero, right? That's been baked in for centuries and centuries, how we learn and the stories we like. It's a simple theme, and it's true. If there's no challenge, if there's no barrier or roadblock to overcome or bypass, there is no interest there is no story. Right?
Yeah. No, you got to be your own hero. Like, don't wait for like the white knight. Don't wait. You got to be your own hero. Just go. Like, just do it.
100. Well, I would say, I'm going to give you my reasoning. I think being a mother for women speakers, why there's fewer speakers in there. I think as a general rule, guys get away with more. Like as a female speaker, it is harder for you. Like for instance, if somebody is talking during my lecture, I've lectured enough now that I'll kind of make a joke out of it, like, "Hey, asshole in the back, why don't you be quiet there?" And like make a joke out of it in some way, but really they know. And if you do that, there's a different word for that, right? Like, and that's messed up.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen it over and over. And so I think, I've talked about this with my wife because she's got to do things like this. And you guys have a tighter rope to walk there, right? In many ways, less of the benefit of the doubt, probably. So I think that's part of it. I think that's not as much as it used to be, probably. But I think it's what you're doing. You're just going for it, right? Like, and I think that's what a lot of people miss is you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to, you could just give a lecture, by the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can just do it. You don't have to have a company say it's okay for you to speak. You don't like, and I would actually argue that's how you become like a real KOL. Is you don't wait on them.
Yeah.
You do you, and they will come for sure.
That was the beautiful thing about the conference. I was like, hey guys, like this is what I'm doing. And all the companies were in support. They're like, we've needed this for a long time. Nobody's like really, people have thought about it, but nobody really brought it into fruition. Everybody was on board. I mean, of course, a few people were like, it's a bad idea. You shouldn't do this. This is sexist. I'm like, is it though? If it's a bunch of
well, okay, it's sexist if. Okay.
Is it?
Well, then you could call it specialist if it's a perio meeting, right? Like, so like, is it? I think that's bunk. And I get why people are doing that now today more than ever for certain reasons, right? Like as a white guy, sometimes people don't want to hear what you have to say, right? Sometimes people won't want this or that from you, right? Like that exists. I don't care, right? Like you don't have to listen to the noise. I think that's the point there, right? But I wouldn't. And by the way, are men welcome to come?
Yes. There's a bunch of guys that are coming, actually. I'm so excited about that because the lineup is all like female KOL, but there's so many men that support us. And I've had like a bunch of Zoom meetings and like conferences and like this whole, like from October to now has been like work, perio pocket, scrubs and scalpels, meetings, like busy. But there's so many men that support too. So I do think that we like highlight that. And there's a lot of guys that are coming and I'm so excited about it. Like
that's awesome.
Friends, sponsors, vendors, like there's a lot of people that have wanted to see this happen, not just the ladies, even the guys too are like, hey, like why isn't, but how can you help? How can you support if like you don't know where to funnel that energy into, you know?
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, there's lots of ways to do that too. And I think if you're not going to listen to a speaker because of their gender, like that's bunk. Like, and as the speaker, if you're worried about that, that's bunk. You know why? Because real recognizes real. If you offer really good content, if they learn something from you, it doesn't matter who or what you are, right? Like that's the bottom line, right? Like if and this goes for anything. This is not just dentistry and speaking. Like,
yeah.
It is what it is. Like I'm 5.5 feet tall, but I used to be a good basketball player. So I would go to this gym downtown and they would look at me and be like, sure, guy. So by the 8th game that they finally let me play, they'd be like, oh, this guy can play a little bit. Like shocking. I know I don't look like it, but there was a time, right?
No, it's a true story.
You can ask my wife. I was the only white guy and I was by far the smallest. And I used to play 5-6 days a week back in my early 20s. Not anymore.
There was just a remake of that movie. What was it called?
White Man Can't Jump.
Yeah,
way better than Jack Harlow.
Oh, I love Jack Harlow. Oh, that movie.
I'm vanilla, baby. Jack Harlow's, that's my guy right now.
He's
right?
so good.
He's smooth as it gets, man. He really is. So, well, that's really cool. So, and I think, and what's the topic again for AAP? You're talking about what new grads you're on the panel?
Life after residency is the topic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I got to say, like, it's really cool, Princess, to see, like, meeting you at DIA many years, or not, I guess, many, I'm getting old now, so it's not that many to me.
Honestly.
Yeah, but seeing like you've done lectures for ZimV, you've done it for others, and just watching you kind of like jump on the podcast and continue to like get out of your. What I like most about you, you always are getting out of your comfort zone, always, which is stressful as hell. It's scary as hell.
Yeah.
But I would argue it. Looking back, it's also rewarding as hell.
It's so rewarding. I'm like really thankful for like my core group of like friends. You know, you for sure have been somebody that's like, what's the worst that can happen? Like those questions that you just need asked. Like even with AAP, at first I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And I reached out to Brad because I trust him and like his opinion. He's like, no, you need to do this. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And then I was like, no, I need to do this. So I definitely like appreciate all the people behind it. It's not just me having, I think with social media, you can post a photo and a picture and it looks so glamorous. And I'm so good at like the editing and the caption and all that. And I do try to be as like authentic as possible. But even if I'm authentic, people are like, oh, you're so real. But I'm like, I am. But I also like, I had shingles twice the first year of practice. And I like, there's all these other struggles behind like the.
Oh, you mean your actual human, right?
Yeah.
You have shit going on.
I fail. I think you just have to be like okay with failing and with people not being on board, with people not supporting you, and then just finding your crew that's gonna, you know, push you forward. It's not me.
Well said, right? Like I think what you said right there that really hit home, being okay with failing, right? Like, because before you ever really fail at something big or you think it's big in your head, by the way, it's not. Whatever you've done, probably been done in some way, shape, or form before, including, and that goes for everything I've ever done, but to you, it's new, right? So why does getting the first breakup when you were in love for the first time hurt so bad? Because you've never been through it before, right? And then every time you go past it, you look back and you're like I had a fiance, my high school sweetheart, and she cheated on me after I graduated college, broke me in half. But, and at the time, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Worst thing is whatever's the worst thing that happened to you is the worst thing that happened to you. Oh. And getting through that led me to where I am. It made me a better person. And it's crazy. Anything in work that I failed at the time felt awful, like crushing, like I'm a loser. Everybody's going to laugh at me. Nobody cares, by the way.
Who's everybody, by the way? Like,
there's literally, they don't exist, right? Like everybody is nobody, essentially. It's all in your head.
Yeah.
But every failure I've ever had has, with one exception, you have to look at the failure and realize, why did I fail?
Yeah.
And like, where does it take you now? What do you learn? If you learn something, it's not really a failure.
I like that. I will add to that. If you learn from other people's failures and you ask and you find people and you're like, hey, what did you learn?
If you're really smart, you learn from other people's failures. I am too stupid for that.
No. Some people just have to go through it. And it was my dad. So my dad's been practicing for 42 years in dentistry. They're in Mexico on vacation right now. It was his 72nd birthday.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Yeah, happy birthday. He has no plans on retiring at all. He's just going to work until he can. He's like really physically healthy, mentally healthy. In his mind, he's at his peak, and he probably is. Like in a lot of ways, he's in better shape than I am. And I messaged him and I was like, thank you. It has to be so tough to be a parent and to watch your kid just go through these like failures and emotions and struggles and just watch. And sometimes I succeeded, sometimes I failed, but he just watched me and helped me and didn't intervene, but just kind of let me grow on my own. And he was like, no, I'm a dad. Like, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, it's not a burden. I'm like, I didn't mean to say I'm a burden. I just think it's like so tough to like.
As a father, your dad's doing it right, because what you just said, and I had this conversation with my wife, right? So like her instincts are to never let the boys get hurt, always protect them all the time, which sounds like that makes sense, except when you realize what happens when they get out on their own. And I think that the dad's job is to allow them to fail, or I let them get hurt but not injured, right? So my kid was climbing a tree. He was maybe 6 feet up in the air, and he's like, Dad, help me down. I go, you got up there? What if I wasn't here? Right? Because essentially I look at it as like, I'm preparing you to be okay if I'm not here. Right. Which is scary to say, but it's the truth. Like, and so, but then supporting them, even when they did exactly the opposite of what they told you to do all of that stuff. It's dads and moms and parents are important. It's important to like support your kids, but also let not control them. They're their own people.
It has to be like the most difficult job, like for sure. Dads and moms, like watching your kids just go through all these like struggles, wins, not hyping them up too much. Like
There's another kid that's mean to him, and you just want to punch that kid in the face, and you have to like, I can't punch that kid in the face.
No, I was telling my husband, like, I grew up in El Paso, Texas, so like totally different, right? And there was times where I would get in like fights at school when I was a little kid, and yeah, and then I'm like, how horrible. Little monster.
Listen, sometimes you got to fight. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to fight. Sometimes you got to get your butt kicked. Sometimes.
Yeah.
That happened to me once or twice.
Did you? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in the Peachtree City suburb. Still get your butt kicked in a suburb.
Yeah.
It's not like El Paso, Texas fights, but like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Suburb fights. Still get beat up.
El Paso, Texas. But yeah, no, my mom too. My mom has been like super supportive. I think that's where I got that like the yearning to lecture and to speak and to be in education and all that. So my parents met because my dad grew up in El Paso also. He moved out when he was like 9 years old and just moved to Palm Springs with one of his brothers. And if you ask him to this day, he's like, the house was just too crowded. There was too many of us. There was like 12 siblings, and he was like, there wasn't room. And so he lived with an aunt and uncle at a restaurant, and they would sleep at the restaurant and clean the restaurant in exchange for like sleeping there. Put himself through school. He was doing gardening. He met his mentor, who is he was Jewish, and he was a buyer for Ross and Marshalls and like stores like that. And I guess saw something in my dad and was like, hey kid, like you should find something to do with your life. Like, what do you want to do? And put him in touch with different friends that he had. And then my dad.
Your dad sounds like a badass. So we will have to get the king on some sort of episode.
Oh, good luck. So I flew him out here to talk to some of my dental friends because I'm like, you guys need to meet this guy. Like, he's so low key, so under the radar, but he's been practicing for 42 years. Like, not many people can say that.
Did you just challenge me? Say good luck getting your dad on the podcast. You just tell me I couldn't do it, Princess.
Good luck.
I'm gonna get it done now.
Yeah, where do you think I get my like?
I'm just gonna call him and say, your daughter said I'd never be able to get you on. Can we just do it despite her?
And he'd be like, "Oh, okay."
Exactly. I know how to work the system. Come on.
She said no. But so I got him out here. He lectured to my friends and all that. But he met my mom because she was a migrant kid. So my mom grew up in Mexico. She was born there, came to the U.S., and she was out in the fields, and she would pick like onions, cotton, different crops.
That's hard work.
Super hard work as a child. Like, that's hard. And so a lot of those kids, what people don't realize is they get behind in school because they're chasing crops and they're following the money in the US, you know?
Sure.
So she saw that, she got involved. They hired her like right after high school. And then she started learning how to write grants and get funding and get scholarships. Wow. And she got dental care for them. And then that's how she met my dad. So
that's awesome.
I know. Super, super romantic story. But
grant writing too, randomly. Such a how important that is. And if you don't know how to write the grants, you're never getting the money to help people out. And there's lots of money out there if you know how to write it.
You know how to get it. So speaking on that, I've been trying to get grants for scrubs and scalpels because we also have a scholarship component. So
nice. Ladies
and gentlemen, perio or not, if you're pre-dent, if you're in dental school, we had some pros people apply, like just apply. If you're looking for the connection, the network, and the support, just apply for the scholarship.
Yeah. As much as dental school costs, any advanced programs, like if you work hard, I would apply.
Just apply. Look at our website, and then we've been working on like grants and stuff. And I messaged my mom as like, "Hey, I want to do this as part of. I'm doing this. How do I do this?" And within like 2 minutes, she's like, "You need a 503C. You need to do this. You need to do that."
I don't know what any of those things are.
But I'm super lucky and fortunate, and like, you know, at least I have like my parents also with that like background. Yeah, it is huge, and not a lot of people have that. So if I do and I can help other people, like that's what Scrubs and Scalpels, and that's what it's all about, you know.
Just paying it forward.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, you've always been about that too, helping out others. That's like every time I've ever talked to you, you're always talking about like, I'm doing this to help somebody else. And that to me is where you're like, we're at AB, like, why do you spend the time to help me? I'm like, because you're helping other people, dude. Like, what am I going to help, an asshole, or am I going to help somebody who's helping other people? Like, it's not even a question.
It's so much like time and energy. So you're like thankful for the people that we've been friends for honestly 6 years. Isn't that?
I know, that's awesome.
Wild. As a baby, when you met me, I had just finished residency.
I'm just getting old. That's all it is now. Every day.
Aren't we all?
Got some hard miles because of my kids. Speaking of my kids and being a dad, we're going to wrap this because I've got to go be a good dad and put my son to bed.
Aww,
which means drink all the NyQuil and Benadryl and go to sleep and leave me alone. I'm just joking. I'm joking, Princess.
My face. There's
you can't see her face. She's like shocked that I don't do that to my kid. What are we talking about here?
You said like I didn't know you were joking.
Just if you're not sure, just defer to I'm joking. Always.
Yeah, no, literally.
I mean, you've known me 6 years now. What do you expect? So, all right, one last time. On Instagram, where do they find you?
On Instagram at Perio.Princess, also scrubs and scalpels.
.com.
.com is the website. We also have an Instagram. Also, by the way, side note, I know we got to go, but I haven't had a Facebook in like over 15, 20 years. So I had to get on Facebook for scrubs and scalpels. Yeah. Like, what is this? This is like my face, the emotions is so stressful, but so anyways, I maybe Facebook.
Little secret here. I got hacked 3 years ago on Facebook, 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And I just walked away because Facebook won't help you. They don't care.
No, I haven't been on Facebook in like 15 or 20 years. So I had no idea. I'm like, how do I move from this to this? And like,
just get on that TikTok-y thing or whatever that is that they're going to do.
I think those are chips, but yeah. www.scrubsandscalpels.com and then at Perio Princess, just send me a message. I always get back to everybody.
And so scrubsandscalpels.com, they can get tickets for Women in Perio?
June 8th. I haven't checked. We might be sold out. If we are, just send me a message and I will put you on the wait list.
If she took my note, everybody, there's going to be a little bit of an overflow here. So you might get lucky. But that's congratulations, because like I know how much work it is putting it all together, and you've always been grateful for any advice I give you, but I always tell you the same thing. It's easy to tell you what to do. The hard part's actually doing it.
It was not hard. That's what everybody says.
I love it.
Must be so much work. I'm like, it was so easy. Everything just fell in my lap. Unlike the practice, like dental school. I'm like,
everything's easy, except it wasn't.
No, this is so easy. It was.
Relative to those things?
Yeah.
That's 100% true.
Yeah. Because this is fun. Like, let's go. Come, have a good time.
Big party. Learn some stuff. Have a good time. Listen, again, I apologize for not being able to be there. I will be in a different country, but I will be at the next one. And I'm really excited for you. It should be really, really good.
You need to be at the next one. I will hold it against you because I'm a woman and I never forget.
Don't I know? And with that, folks, we'll catch you on the next All In podcast.
Thanks for listening to the All In Podcast. See you next time.